Hi and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to talk about the 24 worst books that I read in 2024. And just so you know, I don't own my own books. I pretty much get all of them from the library. So all the ones I'm talking about I've got from my local library or through Libby or Hoopla. So today we're going to list the books from, I guess, the best of the worst down to the worst of the worst. Now I'm being kind of dramatic when I say the worst. Some of these books aren't bad and I would still recommend them. They just happen to be not as good as the other books I read this year. Apparently I'm easy to please because the majority of the books I read this year I rated like 4 stars. I actually only rated 2 books this year 2 stars, and I'll get to those at the end of the video. As always, this is just my opinion, but I'd love to hear whether you agree or disagree. So the first one I'm going to mention is The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. This is the 3rd book in the Housemaid series. Now, I would say it's a trilogy, but who knows how many more she's going to come out with. This book follows Millie years after the other 2 took place. She is now a mother and living a relatively normal life, and she just purchased a home for her kids. It's a dream home, a little bit out of her price range, but she just wants to give them a normal life. All is going well until she meets her neighbors. She just wants them to like her and she wants to like them, but they're not getting along. Now, I was a huge fan of the first Housemaid. I kind of got Gone Girl vibes, like the twist kind of threw me for a loop and I loved it. I recommend it to everybody, especially if you're just starting your thriller journey. The second one was okay too. I really like Millie and Enzo's relationship in those two. I just felt this one was unnecessary. I didn't like Enzo and Millie in this. I just didn't like their relationship. The only reason I rated this a 3.5 and not like a 2.5 is because I did like how the ending tied together, but it was nowhere near what I thought about the other 2. I had to read the 3rd one just because I knew I needed to complete the trilogy, but if you don't feel that need, I would say skip it. And number 2 is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. When Chloe was 12, teenage girls would go missing in her small town. Then her father ended up being convicted of being a serial killer. 20 years later, she's a psychologist and she's getting married and she's got her life together. But then another teenage girl goes missing and then another. And she just kind of sees parallels between these murders and the ones when she was a kid. Okay, so that description is pretty much taken from Goodreads because I just don't remember this book at all. I think that's the reason why many of the books are on these lists. They're not memorable to me. I really liked All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. And I do think this one's worth a read still. I also think someone that's new to thrillers might really enjoy the twists here. The twists are interesting. They're just a little bit predictable in my opinion. Number 3, I know I'm going to get some flack for, but is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Adam and Amelia's marriage is on the rocks. They win a weekend getaway to a secluded area in Scotland, and they are hoping that's what they need to save their marriage. Adam has lived with face blindness his entire life, so he can't recognize anyone, even his wife. Every anniversary, the couple exchange gifts, like the traditional gifts like paper, tin, all those ones. And every year, Adam's wife writes him a letter that she never gives to him. So I know a lot of people like this book, but I think I've learned something about myself. I don't think I like those winter secluded tropes that everybody seems to enjoy. I just find them very similar and like it's predictable because they can't call for help because they are stranded. I did rate this 3.5 stars because I didn't see the twist coming. I did like the twist. I just didn't connect with the characters and I didn't enjoy it that much compared to the other books I read this year. Number 4 is End of Watch by Stephen King. This is the last book of the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. In this book, Brady, who's from the first books, is driving his enemies to commit suicide. He's supposed to be brain dead at a brain injury clinic, but he's still somehow managing to do this. So Bill Hodges and Holly Gibney have to figure out how he's doing it without it happening to them as well. His doctors say it'd be impossible for him to recover from the injury, so they're kind of unsure how he's behind all these killings or suicides, but they know it's him. Okay, if you watched my last video of the best reads I've read this year, you'll see that I included Finders Keepers, which is the 2nd book in the trilogy, and the first one I read years ago, so it's not in any of these. So I really did like this trilogy, and I think you should still read this one if you read the other 2 because you need to know how it ends. Like, this is how it ends. I just didn't like it as much because suddenly out of nowhere there's like a supernatural element, which is okay. It's just the other 2 didn't have that, and then all of a sudden now I'm supposed to believe something happened that's kind of unbelievable. So that's just why I didn't like it that much. I don't think that's a spoiler. It's just go into it knowing that anything can happen. Now, number 5 is One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. This book follows several points of view of women all in this small town that's full of rich people. There's Jenny, who's the owner of the salon where all these women go get their hair done. There's Shannon, who was the queen bee until her husband dumps her for a younger woman. There's Crystal, who is that younger woman. Then there's Olivia, who wants to become queen bee and she'll stop at nothing for that to happen. Who of them is going to end up dead? This is another one of those books I just thought was okay. I liked it. I still recommend it. I love Geneva Rose. I follow her on all the social medias and I think she's hilarious. I just didn't find the book anything special, but again, that's just my opinion. Number 6 is The Serial Killer's Wife by Alice Hunter. The police are saying Tom's a serial killer. They think his wife Beth knew. Their perfect life comes crashing down around them. Tom gets taken to jail. The interrogation starts. Beth is now questioning everything she knew about Tom. Again, if you saw my other video, you'll see that I included the other book here, the second one to it, which is The Serial Killer's Daughter. I just found this one was a little bit slow burning. It's another book that if it wasn't for the end, I wouldn't have liked it. Still a decent book, and I don't hear it talked about that much. It was okay. Number 7 is another one I'm going to get some flack for, I know, and I can't even explain why without giving too much away, but it's Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Authors June Hayward and Athena Liu went to school together. They both set out in the cutthroat industry of publishing and being an author. Athena succeeds, but June isn't doing as well. And then they get together for dinner, but then Athena dies of a kind of a freak accident. That was actually an accident. And then June acts fast and actually steals Athena's unpublished works and then puts it out into the world as her own writing. She just took the idea, but then she writes her own book. The book is about Chinese laborers in the World War I. And Athena was of Asian descent, whereas June wasn't. And that's where the problem is. And again, it isn't a bad book. I really liked seeing kind of the world of publishing and all that authors have to go through. It was very interesting to me, like promoting a book and all that. And this book's also kind of confusing because it's written from June's point of view. So automatically, I think you always take the side of the main character. That's just what your brain's wired to do. But in this case, she did something wrong. So I don't think you are supposed to take her side. I just think that Athena wasn't that innocent either. And if it were real, I think June could have done so many other things to make it so it wouldn't have been wrong. Like I don't know, I can't get into it too much without giving away the plot, but it was an okay book. I really recommend you read it. There were some things I was like, that's weird. I think it was just like frustrating, but maybe that's how it's supposed to be. And I just took it like that. Number 8 is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This book is about a husband and wife who has a typical marriage, typical house, typical kids, and they get bored. They decide to spice things up by killing people. Honestly, the reason this is on this list is because I don't remember this book at all. I don't remember what happened. I don't even remember the husband and wife's names. I don't think there was any like unexpected twist. I did rate it 3 stars, which usually means I liked it. It just doesn't mean there was anything special about it. Looking at the reviews of this book, I think other people enjoyed it a lot. I don't know. There's nothing memorable about it. Number 9 is The Fourth Monkey by J.D. Barker. For over 5 years, the 4-monkey killer has been terrorizing Chicago. When a body is found, all signs are pointing to that is the killer, and they're hoping that things will stop at last. As the lead investigator of the case, Sam Porter gets called to kind of wrap things up, but then he finds a journal in the jacket of the body. And then Sam realizes that things are far from over. This is another book in a series where I included another, like I think it was the 3rd one in my best books of the year. This is the first one, and I think the only reason I rated it lower is because I just didn't have a connection with the characters yet. This builds in the 2nd and 3rd books. Even now as I'm reading this out, I don't even know why I rated it this low. I really do recommend this series, but definitely check your trigger warnings first. This is by far the darkest and most twisted books I read this year. It's not for the faint of heart. It's very graphic. Number 10 is 9 Lives by Peter Swanton. 9 strangers receive a list with a list of 9 names on it in the mail. There's no other information, just the 9 names. None of them have ever met. They live all over. There's no connection that they can see between them. Then one by one, people on the list begin to be murdered. FBI agent Jessica Winslow is actually on the list herself, so she knows she has to solve this case before she's the next crossed off the list. This book was okay. I'd say read it if you own it, but I wouldn't go out of your way to go buy it. I like other books by Peter Swanson a lot more. Honestly, that's all I have to say on it. Number 10 is The Stranger by Harlan Coben. Another book where the main character is living the perfect life when something happens to uproot that. A stranger comes up to him at a bar and tells him this big secret about his wife. It was a devastating secret, and then he confronts her. She admits to it. Soon he finds out he's wrapped up in something beyond that, like he has to find out who this stranger was. I wanted to read another Harlan Coben book because I really liked I Will Find You. That was on my top list books of the year. However, this one fell flat for me. I really didn't like the ending. I don't really understand what happened or how everything connected. It was just I think they made a show about it on Netflix, and I might check that out because maybe I'll like it better as a show. Number 12 is The Perfect Husband by Lisa Gardner. Jim Beckett was the type of man Tess dreamed of marrying, and she finally got her wish. 2 years into their marriage, Tess learns that he's not the man she thought, and she actually helps convict him of being a serial killer. Even locked up in prison, he vowed to come and find her one day and pay her back for ratting on him, I guess. Tess has lived in fear for so long, but now she knows she has to either fight back and kill or be killed. So I've been on Goodreads for about like 5 years, and I've been adding books to my want to read shelf forever. So I was dedicated to going back to like the really old ones I put on that shelf like years ago in 2015, and this was one of them. Actually, The Stranger by Harlan Coben was one of them too. However, I just didn't really like this one. Kind of expected it to be something different, like kind of more focused on their relationship, but it's kind of after, and then I didn't really understand the relationship between the guy she gets to help her and then his sister. It's very confusing to me. It just wasn't what I expected. Number 13 is The Neighbor, also by Lisa Gardner. 2 Lisa Gardners in a row, I know. Don't worry, she was also on my best list too, so I still want to check out more from her. This book is about a mother who disappears in the middle of the night, and then the husband comes home, finds her gone. Her daughter was left all alone. Since he was the only one there, obviously the police suspect him because he's the husband, but then they find a neighbor who is a registered sex offender. Then he becomes kind of the suspect too. This is a Detective D.D. Warren novel, and I really like long-standing series where you just read the next one. I can't help but read the next one. I just didn't think this one was as good as the other ones I've read. There was nothing memorable about this, and that's why it's on the list. Number 14 is Suicide House by Charlie Donnelly. Now, it pains me to put a Charlie Donnelly novel on here because I love his books. Westmount Prep expects all their students to be perfect and follow the rules. In the woods adjacent to the school is an abandoned house where this secret society kind of takes place and initiates new members by hazing them. When suddenly one day there was a brutal slaughter of 2 of the students, and a couple true crime podcasts kind of take over the story. And it wouldn't be that memorable except for the fact that some students that survived that night have returned and committed suicide unrelated. A teacher who was convicted in the murders, they thought it was like kind of case closed, but then when the suicide's happening, they know that there's kind of something more to the story. This is just another book that I didn't think anything substantial happened. There was no twists, in my opinion. I say read it if you want, but I don't think you have to go out of your way to read it. Number 15 is One for the Money by Janet Ivanovich. Stephanie Plum is a bounty hunter with a personality. She needs money, and she convinces her cousin to let her be a bounty hunter. Her first target is Joe Morelli, who happens to also be her first. I think I just wasn't in the mood for this type of book because I know a lot of people did like this book. This is another one that was on my to be read for years, and I finally got it from the library, and I didn't really connect with it. I did really like the narrator of the audiobook. I just think I was in the mood for something more exciting at that time. Maybe more darker. Number 16 is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I don't even know how to describe this book. It's written like to be the narrator is the little kid. I think she's like 5 or younger, and she's being haunted by other mommy, who is some sort of ghost or something that's trying to convince her to let her into her heart. I read this because so many people on Book Talk said how good it was and how scared they were to read it. I read it right around Halloween. I even rated it 3 stars because I think I felt so guilted because I'm like, why didn't I like this? I'm gonna rate it 3 stars because it's okay. But I think it should be way further down this list. It was kind of neat to see something written through the eyes of a child. I was so lost. I didn't understand the book. I didn't find it scary. And I think there are people that agree with me there. I thought I was only on the side of everybody that loved it, but I think there are people out there that didn't. And I need to find those people. Number 17 is Bully by Penelope Douglas. Jared and Tate were best friends growing up, and Jared goes away for one summer and then comes back and suddenly hates Tate. Jared is popular and he'll stop at nothing to kind of humiliate Tate and make her life miserable. But then Tate decides to stand up for herself and not take any more of his crap. So I like spicy romance novels, but when they're in high school, it's kind of icky to me. I don't know. And then this one, I just didn't understand why he hated her, but liked her. It was like one of those things. It's like, oh, if he's mean to you, he loves you. I just wasn't connecting with it. Number 18 is Peril by Kat Martin. Now, this wasn't even like a full book. It was a book that contained like 3 short stories, but it was related to other books by Kat Martin that I've read. So I think because it wasn't a full story, I just didn't like it as much. So that's why it's so far down the list. I would check out her full novels. They're kind of interesting. They're kind of romance, but then have some thriller aspects to it. Although they are very all similar. It's like a brother meets a girl. Some life-threatening situation happens, and then that's pretty much it. But I did like them. I just didn't like this one as much because it was not even a full story. Number 19 is another one that I feel like people don't agree with me on, but it was Goodnight Beautiful by Amy Malloy. Sam and Annie have a great marriage. They move from New York to Sam's hometown. He grew up a bit of a player. He's a therapist and works a lot, leaving Annie alone a lot. He doesn't realize that his therapy sessions are actually, you can hear them from upstairs. One day, Sam just suddenly doesn't come home, and Annie doesn't know what happened to him. I feel like a lot of people recommend this book, and I know that people are going to disagree with me on it, but I just didn't like it that much. I didn't even rate this 3 stars. It was 2.5 at the most. I just didn't think there was any twists at all. It was just a story, nothing unexpected. I'm not sure what I missed that made this book so popular. It was okay. I just didn't think there was anything special. Number 20 is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. Louise is a single mom in a rut, and then she goes out one night and meets a guy at a bar, and then they kiss. And then she goes to work the next day to meet her new boss. Turns out he's that same guy, but he's married. And then she also meets his wife and really hits it off with her. She finds out that they're married, but she really likes the guy. She really likes the wife. But then she kind of learns how controlling he is to the wife, so she's kind of weirded out by that, but she still continues her affair, but then also continues her friendship. This is another book that I just think I'll get flack on, but my brain just couldn't comprehend, again, the random supernatural twist to it. It just starts off not supernaturally, and then suddenly there's a supernatural twist. And the twist was, I will admit, the twist was mind-blowingly out of this world crazy, which I liked. It's like the book House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. When you're not expecting a thrill or a supernatural thing, and then all of a sudden it's supernatural, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. I did like the one by Riley Sager, so I don't know why I didn't like this one as much. It just was too weird for me. Number 21 is The Christmas Murder Game by Alexandra Benedict. This is about 12 clues, a game that they play on the 12 days of Christmas. They have 12 days to solve a bunch of clues, but then people start dying. I was promised a book like Clue. I just didn't think that's what it was. Again, I just didn't find the ending satisfying, and weird things happen. It was just weird, and that's why it's so far down on the list. Number 22 is One by One by Frida McFadden. Similar to Rock, Paper, Scissors in the fact that they get stranded in the middle of nowhere. Husband and wife are going on a weekend getaway with friends trying to save their marriage. Then one by one, they kind of get killed, but they don't know whether it's like natural causes or something else. I was reading other reviews and they were mentioning the mind-blowing twist, but I don't remember that happening at all. So I just don't remember it, and that's why it's so far down. And I just don't like the stranded type thrillers. I just don't like them. Okay, now we're heading to my only two stars. Although after I'm doing this, I don't know why I rated the other one so high. I probably would have rated them like 2 as well. All right, so 23 is Unnatural History by Jonathan Kellerman. As I mentioned, I love a long-running series, and the Alex Delaware novels, I think they're like in the 30s, and I've read them all. I love the Alex Delaware and Milo Sturges like team. This book just kind of fell flat for me. I felt like it was a lot of investigating, a lot of detective work, but not enough action. So there was nothing thrilling. So I just didn't really like it compared to some of the other ones. And now the award for the worst book I read this year is Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. This book was about Beat and Melody, who are the kids of these rock stars. Their moms were in a band together, but then they break up and no one really knows why they broke up, not even Beat and Melody. They both grew up in the spotlight because of their moms, and they're always being pressured to reveal the reason why the band broke up, but none of them do. But then suddenly Beat needs to come up with a ton of money. So they decide to do this reality show where they live stream trying to get their moms to reunite. So what I wanted was a cozy Hallmark Christmas story. What I got was a random story that's only Christmas because it happens on Christmas Eve, I guess. Beat was oddly protective of Melody when they barely even knew each other. And then the spicy romance part of it, he was like kind of mean, or I don't know. He was just way too possessive, and I didn't like that. It just wasn't for me. I wanted cozy Christmas, and that's not what it was. So if you read this book, don't go into it thinking you're gonna get a cozy Christmas story. So those were my 24 lowest ratings of the year. I'd love to know whether you agree or disagree or have any input on what I thought. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching.